Welcome to How Now, the podcast where we talk about how to live in the now. And here's your host, Kim Martin Raymond.
Peace and blessings, love and light, and welcome to this edition of the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. I am your host, Kim Martin Raymond, and I'm a minister, spiritual life coach, holistic nutritionist, author, and founder of Redefining You LLC, where I help my clients to realign themselves, mind, body, and spirit. And welcome to the show. We are still going strong in 2026. We are officially in season 6 of the How Now podcast, and I'm so excited to be back and to be talking about all of these wonderful things that we are going to be touching on this year. We're going to be focusing on my keyword for the year, and that is execution. We've talked about the 365-day challenge. We conducted last year, and now we're in a space where we're going to execute some of the tools, some of the things that we've learned. It's all about not just taking that information and letting it lay dormant, but talking about executing those things so that way we're becoming better versions of ourselves. So first and foremost, if you are new to the How Now podcast, welcome. You are now officially part of the How Now family. Okay, so please be sure to go to my website, www.hownowpodcast.com, and pick your favorite podcast platform. And then be sure to like, follow, share, and subscribe. You can scroll down to the bottom of the page and click on the banner for this week's show, and it'll take you to the How Now YouTube channel, where you can follow some of my playlists like Tuesday, where I share a scripture verse each week. Or you can go back and check out the 365-day challenge if you missed it. And you can also click on some of the How Now podcast episodes that you may have missed over the last 5 seasons. So you can find all things happening in my now at www.hownowpodcast.com. All right. So let's get into tonight's show, where we're going to be talking about spiritual principles. Okay. What the beauty of how the show is going to go in this season 6 is that I'm going to have a co-host that will be joining me each week to talk about different aspects of our overall wellness. Okay. And so tonight we're going to be talking again about spiritual principles, and we are going to be sharing this experience with my guest, who is to my left or your right. Okay. And as is customary with the How Now podcast, I'm going to have him introduce himself at this time. All right. Good evening, Dr. Howard.
Good evening. My name, of course, is Dr. Reginald Howard. I'm the founder and spiritual director of Truth and Transformation Ministries. I've been an ordained minister for the past 25 years, 25 and a half years. Time moves when you're having fun, right? And I also am an author. I've just recently authored a new book entitled You Are the Prayer That You Pray, which will be, she has a copy of it in her hand there. It'll be officially released next month. Yes. And I'm also the author of Manifest Your Magnificence, historical and spiritual blueprint for transformation. So we have those books that I've just recently published. And also, I'm a native of Atlanta, grew up here in Atlanta, graduated from both Georgia State and Clark Atlanta. I have a PhD in psychology. So I bring both the worlds of spirituality and psychology together so that we understand and know that we are perfect, whole, and complete in our spirit. It's just our human selves have to be aligned with our spiritual self.
Absolutely. Well, I am so thrilled to have you here. Glad that you are part of the How Now family officially now. And so, yeah, it's going to be a wonderful journey that we'll be taking through this season 6 through the year of 2026. And like I said, we're just going to be focusing on execution and adding tools to our overall wellness toolboxes. We talk about toolboxes here, and we talk about spiritual, mental, and physical toolboxes. And I'm looking forward to the wonderful nuggets that we are going to be able to bring to our listeners as we're going through this new year. Okay, so like I said, we're going to be talking about principles, and they're going to be 12. So each month we'll be focusing on one principle. And so, what principle will we be talking about this evening?
Tonight, we will be talking about the spiritual principle of faith. And I want to talk a little bit about principle. What is a principle? A principle is just a basic fundamental truth. And the way I'm oriented and the way I understand spirituality and God is that the God presence is within all of us. And so therefore, it's just like when I took accounting at Georgia State University, there were accounting principles, fundamental truths that you had to work with around accounting. Well, God is the same way. God has certain principles that we have to use in order to be in alignment with it. And these principles are a part of us. So the first principle that we're discussing is faith. Faith represents the knowingness that whatever you desire is already yours. Faith represents the knowingness that whatever you desire is already yours. And the wonderful thing about faith is that we don't have to run and go get faith. Yeah. Faith is just an integral part of our being, and it becomes activated when you become aware that you have it. Everything that you desire, you already have. We just have to go forward to manifest. And one of the beautiful things out of the Bible, Jesus said that the kingdom of heaven is already at hand, and that the kingdom of heaven is within you. And so I take that to mean in the 21st century that we are perfect, whole, and complete. It's our human selves that have to get in alignment with God, or in alignment with the spiritual principles of God. So the first of those spiritual principles is faith. Faith represents the knowingness. It's more than belief, but the knowingness that what you desire is already yours.
I absolutely love that. I love that we are spiritual beings, and we hear this a lot. We are spiritual beings living a human experience. And so, and in order for us to tap into those beliefs and to tap into those principles, we really have to start within. And right. I love that you say that, and that it's about those fundamental truths. It's about that knowingness. Everything comes from a place of awareness, and I think that is that we address that, because when we're talking about being aware and acknowledging things, I believe that's where healing begins.
Right. Really, and the healing, as you just mentioned, the healing begins with your conscious awareness that you can be healed. Yes. That there's a healing aspect of your being, and that your entire being wants to be healed. That's why a lot of things will come up in our experience, and they come up to be healed. See, and so we have to work with the awareness that all things are really working together for our good. And I've recently gone through a situation where I had a business that didn't quite work out. And I had to change my mind around it in terms of looking at it as a loss, because there really aren't any losses in God. Yeah. So that situation would appear to be an unfortunate situation. It really was a situation that came to bless me, because I know that whatever that I had acquired prior to the business before the business went out, I can acquire again because I have the consciousness to be able to draw uh, that same level of financial reward that I had before. I have the consciousness to do that again and draw even more because I even know more now than I did when I started that business. So we have to begin to expand our awareness, know that everything that comes on our path has come to bless us. Everything works together for those who what? Love God. So we have to move forward in the knowingness, which again, I'm talking about faith. We have to move forward in the knowingness that all things are working together. And whatever I need to know will
Yes.
be revealed to me. That's another spiritual principle. Spiritual understanding. Spiritual understanding just reveals itself. We don't have to figure it out, but we take the understanding that comes to us, use it. You're talking about execution,
Yes.
but we have to use it in faith, knowing that everything is working out together for our good.
Right. I absolutely love that. And that makes perfect sense. Yeah. And when, as you were speaking, it made me think of, Romans 12:2, the renewing of our mind.
Right. Be
It's
ye
very
transformed through the renewing of
being
your
transformed
mind.
through the
And
renewing.
our minds are our connecting link to God.
Yes.
So we can use our minds to be in alignment again with the spiritual principle of faith. The Bible also tells us pray as if your prayer has already been answered. See,
Yeah.
what if we approach life in that kind of way, knowing that whatever we desire has already been answered before you even call? I will answer. That's another scripture from the Bible. Before you even call,
Right.
I will answer. See? So whatever we're desiring, that those desires are really the God presence within us, urging us to go forward to
Yeah.
the good. But a lot of times we don't experience good or the blessings, so to speak, because we'll say to ourselves, I can't do it. I don't know how to do it. Nobody will help me. And one of the things that Madam C.J. Walker said, I got my start. Madam C.J. Walker, of course, was the first self-made female millionaire in the United States, black or white. She was the first black female millionaire, but she was also the first self-made female
Wow.
millionaire. But she said, this is what she said, a black woman coming out of slavery in 1906. I got my start by giving myself a start. So she had to move forward in faith with the God-given idea that the cosmetic products that she was developing in the early 1900s
Right.
was going to serve our community. And she was so successful at it that even Avon Cosmetics Company copied her business model with the door-to-door sales agents. See, there's so much genius that's within us,
Yeah.
but we have gotten cultural amnesia.
I like that. I like it. It's one to write down. Cultural. And we have.
Yeah.
And for her to be successful, like you said, to come from a place of slavery, and the mindset that comes with being in that position, being in
Yeah.
that space,
Mhm.
and to say,
Mhm.
oh my goodness, to even think that anything is possible
Right.
coming
Right.
in.
I want to share something of one of the quotes that she said at one point. It's a very powerful quote about how she had to basically promote herself into her own success. I want to share it from my book. I should have had this bookmarked,
All right.
but we're going with the flow tonight, right?
Yes, we are.
It's just a powerful quote, and the spirit is just really moving me to to share it with you. Give me
Absolutely.
a second here.
No, that's all right. And then also, as Dr. Howard will be joining us, please make sure that you check out his YouTube channel. That's scrolling across the bottom of the screen. So that way, you can connect with him as we're going through, these spiritual principles throughout the year. So make sure that you're tapping into that as well. Make sure that you're following and writing that down so that you can like, follow, share, and subscribe as well. All right. Did we find it?
I found it. This
Okay.
is what she says. I am a woman that came from the cotton fields of the South.
Mm.
I was promoted from there to the wash tub. Then I was promoted to the cook in the kitchen. And from there, I promoted myself into the business of manufacturing hair goods and preparations. Everyone told me I was making a mistake by going into this business, but I know how to grow hair as well as I know how to grow cotton.
Wow.
It's a
Wow.
powerful statement.
Yes.
And she moved forward what? In faith, knowing that the idea, see, it's really the idea, and I have to give Reverend Ike credit for this. It's the ideas, the divine ideas that we use. You're talking about execution, the divine ideas that we use, that we execute, that really make us rich.
Wow. Wow.
If you use the idea, if you implement the idea will pay off.
Right.
And going back to the understanding and the awareness that the kingdom of heaven is within us. It's a consciousness. It's an awareness. It's the presence of God that's working through you and as you to manifest the good that's within you.
Yes. Yes. And it's wonderful that we have the word to be able to help us to solidify some of those questions and those doubts that we may have as well. We know that it's within us, and sometimes we need that little point of reference. We need to be able to go back and say, what does the word say about that? So that way we okay, now I can begin to make the connection, because it's like you said, it starts from within. But if we don't know how to tap into that,
if we don't know how to tap and see, and the God presence is always talking to us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. What we don't do is that we don't quiet our minds. What does the scripture say? Be still and know I am God. See, and if we could just get still, maybe you have to turn off social media. Nothing wrong with social media, but we all have to begin to quiet ourselves down, turn off social media, turn off the television, turn off the radio. I know that I received my calling to go into the ministry. This was years ago. I was driving down I-20 going going east, and my radio was not working. And the voice said to me to go into the ministry. Now, at that point, I was in graduate school. I was going to Clark, Atlanta, and my plan was not to go into ministry at all. I had planned to go into the academic world and become a professor, but I was led into going into ministry. I just have a strong desire to help people expand their awareness of who and what they are, and help and through ministry help people to expand their awareness of who and what God is. And many of us have a very contained view of who and what God is and how God works in our lives. You really can't put a limitation on God. You can't put any limitations on God. And what I'm learning as I work with myself also is that we can't just relate to God just as a human being. We've got to realize that we have a spirit within us. The scripture says there is a spirit in man. So we are mind, body, soul, and spirit. And the spirit of us has to be the ruling nature over those other aspects of our being. and that the highest aspect of who and what we are is spirit. And so we have to relate to God as spirit. See, if we never begin to elevate our minds in terms of who and what we are, and in terms of how we relate to God, we'll never step into reaching our full and highest spiritual potential. So it is very important that we begin to elevate our minds. And that's what Christ represents. Christ represents one who has elevated his or her awareness into union with God, or into union with his or her higher self. So we've got to work with our understanding in terms of who and what we are. Yes, we're in human form, but it's the spirit of us that came forth and created the flesh. So we have to begin to rework our understanding. And particularly now in this particular time, we really have to, as you said earlier, we really have to be about the execution of our faith. We have to be really about the knowingness of who we are at this particular time, in this particular moment. We're looking at different things. I heard somebody complaining the other day about the African American Museum in Washington, D.C., and how they've taken certain things out. But see, we have to invigorate ourselves to know our own African American history, and also to know that our history goes further back than this. So we've got to work with ourselves, knowing who and what we are. And one of the points that I make in the book is that the historical figures that we know of, Rosa Parks, Mary McLeod Bethune, Malcolm X, they were able to do what it is that they did because they were tuned in and tied in with spirit. That's what made the difference. That's what allowed them to anchor their place in history. And so we're not going to do the same things as they did, but the spirit expresses itself through you and through me and everybody listening. It expresses itself uniquely through us. And so we have to decide through faith, through the knowingness that's within us, that we're going to anchor our divine ideas into the earth. And when we begin to decide that we want to anchor all that's within us into the earth, we want to begin to manifest who and what we are into the earth. The corruption that we see will have to diminish. You know what I'm saying? But see, there's an unwillingness and there's a fear among us. And I think that people said, well, this is a bad time and this, that, and this is a great time, because what it's doing is it's allowing us to move forward in faith. Many of us haven't used our faith. Many of us have gotten lackadaisical in our faith. Now is the time for you to begin to use that faith to move forward, to do what you need to do in order to get done what you need to get done. And, you've heard me say this before. Nobody is coming to save us. See, we're faced with that same dilemma that Harriet Tubman had on that plantation. She realized on that plantation that nobody was really coming to save her. In order to get off that plantation, she had to liberate her mind. And that's where we are. We've got to liberate our minds. Nobody's coming to save us. And many of us are still stuck on the plantation of our minds. We're mentally and emotionally bound. And it's time for us to realize who and what we are, so we can be spiritually liberated, and we can be even more liberated in so many other ways, financially liberated. Again, like I said, if you begin to use the ideas, the spiritual ideas, the divine ideas that God gives you, whether it's a job or a book or a business or whatever, if you can begin to cultivate all of those God-given ideas, execute them, as you said, as we begin to execute them, you'll step into the richness that's already within you.
That's
And
it.
the richness that's already within you has got to have some financial rewards that's going to match.
Yeah.
So,
I just say, one thing that really resonates with me that you said is when you're talking about the fact that, there's so much noise. There's so
mhm,
many things that are attacking our ear gates and our eye gates on a daily basis. And and it's not until we can get to that space of discernment where we can get to that space of just being able to say, okay, there's too much going on. There's too many things going on. We are so easily distracted
yes.
by the things that are going on around us, and it's almost feels like it's by design.
Mhm,
Let me keep you distracted so that you don't focus on those things that you need to focus on,
mhm,
and that you don't hear those things that you need to hear, because all of these other things are going on, are swirling around you, that
mhm,
you're not focusing in on what's important, on what's true, on what's
mhm,
real. We're so
mhm,
inundated, and it's coming at us at a rate that, you know,
mhm.
it's almost,
Right.
it's like, it's too much. It's too
Right.
much.
I mean, you remember back when we were growing up, you remember that the
Yeah.
TV used to eventually sign off.
Yeah.
Now the TV is just running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week,
That's it.
365 days. It's just continuously inundating
We
you
just
with
scrolling and scrolling
information.
and scrolling, and we never stop
Right.
to focus on what's going on with us. It was interesting when the pandemic hit, and people, were limited in the amount of distractions that they had. They still, they clutched on to that social media and things like that because they couldn't be outside and they couldn't experience things, and they were just like, no, yeah, I'm going to hang on to this because this is all that I have.
Hmm.
But that's real
Hmm.
propaganda, and that's how we're, you know, I don't know how to say it any other way. That's how they get us.
Right, right, right,
by,
right.
by distracting us, and saying,
Mhm,
hey, look over here, look at this shiny thing, look at this new thing, look at
mhm,
this, to keep us from
mhm.
focusing, and we're missing out on opportunities to really exercise our faith, because we're conditioned to rely on all these things to keep us going. And as soon as those things are taken away from us, just like when the pandemic hit, some of us were lost. Well, I don't know what I'm
Yeah.
supposed to do. Well, how am I supposed to do this?
Mhm.
Because we haven't
Yeah.
been taught to sustain ourselves. Like you said, we still have that plantation mentality. We're still on the plantation in our mind and haven't moved or progressed past that point.
Right. And see, and one of the wonderful things about our conversation and us talking about fundamental truths and
Yeah.
spiritual principle is that everything begins with thought. And see, I'm convinced, based on just what you just said, I'm convinced that in many instances we're not even thinking our own thoughts because of all the distractions. But once you, whether it's your thought or whether it's somebody else's thought, once you accept that thought and you bring it into your being, you're gonna manifest that thought,
Yes.
whether it's good or bad. So we
Yes.
we've got to begin to say, well, what am I thinking? I've got to get back to a place of pure thoughts. That's why meditation is so important,
Yes.
just to quiet the mind. I even go so far to say that we must meditate prior to even praying,
Hmm.
because a lot of times what we do is we interject our own human thoughts into our prayer, and that God is trying to give us the overarching expanded thoughts.
Yes.
Thoughts are the movement of ideas in our mind. That's why I said our mind is our connecting link with God. So
Yes.
thoughts are the first thing that initiates everything in our mind and in our world and our affairs. So through meditation, we can get in touch with just the pure thoughts of God. Now, there are a lot of people who say, "Oh, I don't know how to meditate. It's hard for me to meditate." This thing requires some level of spiritual practice.
Yes.
Now, my approach toward meditation is very simple. Just close your eyes
Yes.
and just do a little deep breathing. You may have to just do it 1 minute per day.
Right.
just to get started. But see, this is all spiritual practice.
That's right.
See, this is how we reach our spiritual potential, through spiritual practice. It takes practice in order to get to a place where we are able to activate the spiritual principles.
Yes.
The first of, like what we said, faith. We've got to practice our knowingness. Once we've meditated, then we've affirmed through affirmative prayer. Once we've got that down, then I can get up out of my meditative chair or my meditative state,
Yes.
and then I can practice the truth that I know. I'll just share a simple example. I remember years ago, I had a sty on my eye. I went to the doctor. Sty, of course, there's a bump on the eyelid. And I went to the doctor, and the doctor said that they were going to have to cut it and lance it. And I didn't know how to, and let it drain. I didn't want to go through all of that. So I came back home. I just got real quiet. Now, I didn't hear anything when I initially did this. I just got real quiet. Then I got up and I went to the mirror and I looked at that sty. And the spirit spoke to me and said, drink more water. When I started drinking more water, when I started using my faith, even down to drinking a glass of water.
Yes.
When I started using my faith, practicing the presence of God by drinking the water, that sty dissipated.
Yes.
See, we got to, like you said, execution. We've got to practice.
Yes.
It takes practice. You're not going to get there overnight. But
Right.
if you continue to practice the presence of God,
Yes. I like
you will
that.
be able to step into the richness of who and what you are. And one of the things that I like to say is, or one of my affirmations is, you are rich because you are enriched with the Spirit of God. See, you can never be separate and apart from God. And as we're, talking more about faith, I'm being reminded to also say that you are faith.
Yes.
I am faith. I am faith in action. See, we've got to be the prayer that we pray.
That's it.
And we've got to show up. We got to show up in the world differently. I remember some time ago, it might have been about a year and a half ago, I had some knee problems. And we know, those of us who understand metaphysics, that when something shows up in our body, it's directly related to our mindset, our emotions. And so the knee corresponds to our ego. And so I was having some issues with my knee. I think it was my right knee. And I was like, what is all this about? But when I went in my mind and I heard the spirit talking to me, it reminded me, you've gone through a situation where a business didn't quite work out like you expected it to work out. And so that may have caused you to have a bruised ego, which is showing up in your knee. Now, a lot of things we don't consciously think about. You see what I'm saying? So we push it down to the subconscious and we just operate on top of it.
Right.
So our mind is what? Our direct connection with God. And whatever we have in there, whether it's functional or dysfunctional, it's going to manifest. And when it manifests in our physical body, it's signaling to us something needs to be looked at. Something needs to be worked out. And so what I would encourage everyone to do is, when you decide to go within and look at yourself, don't criticize and judge yourself for any reason. You just say, okay, there's some things that I'm assessing and there's some things that I've got to correct. And because I have the Spirit of God within me, I can self-correct.
Yes.
Without being judging. So I had to look at myself, but I still, in that instance, but I also had to be self-affirming. So what I learned was that I got to show up in the world with that situation, with that need. What it was telling me was that I also have to show up in the world more joyful. I can't show up in the world with the same old energy, feeling bruised and feeling broken. See, a lot of times the way we show up directly affects us in terms of what we get back out of the world. So if I show up sad, I'm gonna have more sadness that shows up, or more situations and conditions that are going to bring me more sadness. So we've got to begin to expand our minds, begin to be really transformed through the renewing of our minds. And faith transforms fear. Faith, spiritual transformation transforms fear. And spiritual transformation is more than change. I want to make this point. Spiritual transformation is more than change. Spiritual transformation represents a permanent shift in both our outlook, how we see life, and our lifestyle, how we live life. And in those instances, you see what I'm saying? We've got a lot that needs to be overhauled, but you don't have to do it overnight. Because why? You're practicing your spirituality. So this is very practical. You see what I'm saying? And so a lot of times when I was a part of the traditional church, you would hear about Moses, and Moses parted the Red Sea and that kind of thing. But we've got to be able to make Moses relevant, the Moses experience relevant to the 21st century. And so when we look at Moses, what that really represented was him being able to part the seas of fear within his own mind. We on a daily basis, through faith, we have to part the seas of fear, because many of us drown in the sea of fear every day. Why do we drown? Because we're not using our faith. So we have to go back to the knowingness. I am faith. You are faith. And when you begin to feel some fear, when you begin to feel that fear, you just begin to affirm, I am faith. And why do we use I am? I am is a statement of being. I am represents the God presence within us. And whatever we put behind I am determines our reality.
That's it. I absolutely love that. What that makes me think of is the agreement. We have to be so careful what we agree to with regards to ourselves. People may say things, and if we are agreeing to it, we're accepting that, we're taking that in. So like I said, it's so important that we again, change our mindset, that we get to a space of understanding, like you said, or get to a place of being able to say, okay, I am, of that place of knowingness that you were talking about. That is critical. That is critical. What it is agree to about ourselves. And then that made me think of something that you said earlier this week, and I mentioned it. And it's where you talk about, if we are not at ease with ourselves, we are going to attract dis-ease. When you said it, and when I just said it again, that just, I don't know why that just it resonates with me so dearly, because we have to get to that space of peace within ourselves. We have to get to that space of knowingness. And until we get there, we're going to continue to attract dis-ease, just like you were talking about. Your knee is going to begin to manifest itself in our bodies. It's going to begin to manifest itself in our minds. And so we have to be so careful, about, again, what we're taking in. And what we're allowing to manifest, what we're allowing, what seeds we're allowing to get rooted in our bodies that are going to cause that dis-ease, and it's going to come out in ways that are going to be, that are going to harm us.
The body is just, the mind and the body are just one integral unit, just one. And see, we never really think about it. We think about it in, separate and apart from it. But what you think, what you feel is either going to manifest in your physical body, or it's going to manifest in your relationship, or both. See, we've got to get this thing down because we are all energetic beings. And so the situations, the conditions that often appear in our life experiences, we have drawn them to us just by the way that we think and how we feel about ourselves. Again, going back to what the scripture says, a house divided against itself cannot stand. And so in so many instances, we work against ourselves. It's almost like self-sabotage. I'll say one thing one day, but the next day I'm feeling and thinking something else. And so therefore our experiences become a mix of quote unquote good and evil. That's what the whole story about Adam and Eve was really all about, because that was allegory too. They got consumed with the knowledge of what good and evil when they were only supposed to know good. That's many of us having a mixed consciousness. I think this way today, tomorrow I feel something else, and Friday I'm a different way. So we have all of these different ideas, thought patterns that are not in accordance with what spiritual principle, with faith. If I'm faithful, then I have to remind myself to stay in accordance with faith. Faith does not give way to fear. And if I begin to feel some fear, I can always affirm I am faith. See, again, we've got to be the prayer that we want to pray. And I just want to mention this as well. Prayer is more than silent or verbal communication with God. Prayer is our entire life's energy. It's what I think, it's what I feel, it's the words that I speak, and it's my behaviors. So, for example, when I was overweight, I had to be in alignment with the awareness and an understanding that my body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. So I couldn't call myself names as I was working to perfect my physical health. I couldn't call myself a fat pig and all kind of degrading names. And that's what a lot of times people go through. They put themselves down. It's not God putting you down. It's you putting your own self down, or is when you get encapsulated in that human aspect of yourself and you become fearful, you begin to put your own self down. So we've got to begin to constantly
judgment, all of those things.
Judgment. See, you can make an assessment. I'm not saying don't look at yourself.
Right.
There's a fine line. You can make an assessment, but you still have to be self-affirming. You still get to love and respect who you are as a manifestation of God, no matter how many times you've messed up. See, many of us don't know that because we've made mistakes of the past. We feel like we can't go forward in the now, which is what you're concerned with. We feel like we can't go forward in the now. It's what I did in 1985. It's the mistakes I made. I've done this. I've done that. Just like I said, I've had a business. It didn't work out the way that I wanted. It doesn't mean that I can't go forward. It doesn't mean that I can't love me. It doesn't mean that God doesn't love me. It just means that I've got to use my spiritual understanding and wisdom as I continue to move forward and progress in life. Because why? God is a flow. It's a progression. And when you become stuck primarily stuck in the past or stuck in any aspect of life, you become stagnant, and that's mental and emotional death. I've also said in many instances that a lot of people are dead before they even hit the grave.
Wow.
See,
Wow.
going back to what you say about agreements. See, we are making decisions all the time. You have the power. I have the power. The viewing audience has the power of choice. What are you choosing?
Right. Right.
What are you choosing? And what I'm saying tonight and want to emphasize is that we need to listen to that still small voice and choose to move forward in faith, in the knowingness that what you desire is already yours. The scripture also tells us that you shall have the desires of your heart.
Right. 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 So, like I said, these are powerful words and concepts that people need to embrace. So help us to tie a little bow on this. I know that it's a process, and
Right.
it's something that we have to learn or that we have to embrace that's within. So help us to get a little bit of a starting point, of a footing
Okay.
on how we can establish this idea or this principle of faith.
Okay. Well, one of the things that, just in terms of just spirituality, we have to have the awareness that God is not separate from his creation. You know what I'm saying? We are one with God. Jesus said to his followers that I am one with the Father. But we can make the same affirmation that I am one with God. I am one with the Most High. I am one with the divine intelligence of the universe. So when you begin to change your framework, when you just begin to accept that, life looks different, and you will experience life different. And then we have to begin to accept that we have the knowingness to move forward in life. You got to develop a confidence around the awareness that the knowingness of who and what I am is within me, and I have the ability to execute it. The scripture is very clear, and it says that we don't have to be clueless.
Right.
You remember the movie Clueless? We don't have to be clueless bumping around in life.
Right.
That it says that if you seek, you shall find. Ye shall find. If you knock, the door shall be opened. With all that you're getting, get some understanding. So we have to faithfully step into the knowingness that's within us, and we have to learn to trust it. And it's not, we often hear a lot of times about you've got to trust God. You've really got to learn to trust yourself. When you trust yourself, because we are one with God, when you can trust yourself in God, that makes all of the difference. Now, and just in terms of our daily practice, the things that we can do, as you say, to tie a bow on it, the things that we can do are meditate, pray, eat healthy. All of these things make a difference. This is us grounding ourselves in our spirituality, eating healthy, exercise, engage in right relationships. That means not only your romantic relationships, but your friendships as well. Get to places that are going to support you from a spiritual standpoint. Just like the podcast, you were led to produce a podcast. This podcast is blessing people. We need to be in the practice of watching what you're doing on this podcast every week. It will answer some of the questions if we tune in to what you're doing in all the other areas with all the other brilliant people that you're bringing on. If we could begin to tune in religiously Begin to practice tuning in to things that are going to help us get to church. Our spiritual communities can support us in who and what we're. Our support groups, going if you need mental and emotional help, get into your counselor. These are all the different ways that we can support ourselves in understanding who and what we are as spiritual beings. But it's got to be practice every day. It's real practical, and the remembrance and the acceptance that wherever I am, wherever you are, God is. And when you show up, God shows up in its entire fullness, because God is all knowing, all powerful, and everywhere evenly present.
Okay, I love it. I love it. This is just such a wonderful way to start off, talking about spiritual principles and understanding and being able to connect them. And I like that you bring in people, talking about, figures, historical figures, things of that nature, because it's so important for us to be able to make that connection.
Right.
Human side of us always wants to put things in a box. We're always trying to find places for things to go, because we just feel like that this has to go somewhere. And if we don't know where it goes, and we're just like, I don't know what to do with this. I don't understand this. And so I'm just going to discard it. We're always looking for some type of category, for some place for things to be. And so I think it's I think it's a wonderful start to be able to, begin to center ourselves, to be able to come to center, to be able to focus, and to say, okay, this is the direction that I need to go in, and this is the things I need to do, so that way I'm continuing in creating that right relationship with God.
Right, right, and that relationship brings you into direct contact with your own spirituality. See, I'm not against religion. Nothing wrong with religion, but religion is just like if you and I were going to meet at McDonald's. Well, it doesn't exist here, but the old McDonald's on Wesley Chapel Road.
Right.
You'd get in your car, and I would get in my car. The car represents religion, or a vehicle to get us to the awareness of who and what we are in spirit. So you get there, you might be driving a Toyota, I might be driving a Hyundai. It doesn't matter what the vehicle is.
Right.
The point is, are you getting to the divine destination? And the divine destination is your spirituality. Your divine destination is to realize and come into the direct awareness that God lives in me, through me, and as me. Now that's a little bit different concept.
Yeah.
But that's going to be the divine idea that's going to get us to the finish line. God cannot be in the sky where you looking out there and hoping, and because prayer then becomes hoping and wishing.
Right.
And right. That's not going to work for us anymore.
No,
and just like the people that I put in the book, on some level, who work these spiritual principles, these historical and spiritual luminaries that work these spiritual principles, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Harriet Tubman, they worked the spiritual principle, and they came into a direct awareness that the spirit lives in me. If anything is going to get done, it's going to have to get done through and as me, because the spirit works in me. One of the powerful things that Rosa Parks said when she sat down on that bus was that when she took that stand, of her fear melted away, and the strength of God came through her. Nice. See, so she knew on a deep and profound level that the spirit worked in her. It works the same spirit of strength that worked in Rosa Parks is the same spirit of strength that works in you and I and everybody in the viewing audience. That's the key. And so we have to begin to understand that there's a spiritual blueprint that has been laid by the ancestors, and that has been laid by Jesus, our elder brother, Jesus the Christ. So if we could just walk in the way of that spiritual blueprint using faith, love, strength, understanding, wisdom, power, imagination, will, order, zeal, renunciation, and life. If we could begin to understand, oh, this is a part of my spiritual identity. I'm going to repeat it again. I am the faith of God in action. I am the power of God in action. See, when we begin to understand and know that this is who we are, see, as opposed to thinking I got to run and go get some faith.
That's right.
I don't have enough faith. I got to go and run and go find faith. No, faith works when you work it from the inside. Everything works from what? The inside out. And faith is already a spiritual component, a spiritual principle that already exists within you. You just got to use it.
Yes, I absolutely love it. Look, the spiritual toolbox is getting filled tonight in you to get filled as we go through this year. So I want to first say thank you, like I said, for embarking on this journey with me as we're going through these principles and as we're establishing, things that are going to, that we're going to be able to place in our spiritual toolbox, in our mental toolbox, in our physical toolbox that are going to help us to have that overall wellness that we're seeking, and to be able to have a firm foundation on which to build as we're going through the coming months, so that way, like I said, we're getting to that place of ease, so that we can eliminate the dis-ease that is coming at us and that is trying to attack us on all levels. So I thank you for, like I said, beginning to scratch the surface and looking forward to peeling back the onion as we're, moving forward and talking about these principles and connecting to them and embracing them and having them to resonate within our body, so that way they can begin to take root there and then find their way out, so people will be able to see the God in us. I think that that's critical. I think that that's critical. So
and I want to thank you again for allowing me to share with you once a month. I'm looking forward to it, and it is definitely a gift to share and serve. So I appreciate you and thank you.
I'm grateful, like I said, grateful for the platform to be able to share, to be able to open doors, to be able to pique people's curiosity, so that way we come to a place of wisdom. I always say we want to be able to respond to the things that are going on around us and not react to them, because we're coming from a place of wisdom. We're coming from a place of peace, and that's the goal, to be able to function at an optimal level, in this physical body that we have, but know that it is the spirit within us that is that's going to take root, and that's going to manifest in us as time goes by. So again, thank you, like I said, for this wonderful flagship episode as we're talking about spirituality, and I'm looking forward to what is to come. So again, make sure, guys, that you like, follow, share, and subscribe. His YouTube channel is down there at the bottom of the screen. I believe it says at Truth and Transformation Mini 541. That's what it is. But we will have ways in which you can contact Dr. Howard as we're going along, and make sure that you connect with him. And like I said, we're building relationships. We're building a family here at How Now Podcast, and I just want to make sure that we all have ways to stay connected. It's all about connecting, and like I said, it's a pleasure to share space with you, and I look forward to the months to come. Okay,
I as well.
Yes, and so with that will do it for this edition of the How Now Podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. And until I see you all the next time, or until we see you all the next time, I say peace.